Greetings to one and all on this virtual 19th Energy Efficiency Summit. To all my fellow panelists, a very good morning. While we all know the reason for the virtual summit, we need to appreciate each of us who has not let this pandemic affect the focus on energy efficiency. I'm quite glad to note that the torchbearers of energy efficiency have only increased once this pandemic has affected the world. As we wait to hear from a very eminent panelist this morning in the plenary, I would like to state the importance of sustainability and thereby energy efficiency has only got reinforced multiple times in the post-COVID world. As we embark on rebuilding our economies, it is quite apparent in the minds of everyone that the only option available to us is to build a very robust, a resilient, and a sustainable economy where the bedrock and the foundation is going to be energy efficiency. As we slowly get back to work in our normal daily activities, we clearly are setting into what still is not known whether it's a normal or continuing to be a new normal. But business leaders, as we seize this moment and look at opportunities where we can streamline, improve, and optimize the practices. Many of us who have implemented energy efficiency and sustainability in our practices have realized, while it did make a lot of business sense at that time, when COVID hit and sales were down, investing in energy efficiency really helped us to keep the operational cost very low. Many industries, including my industry, with 50% of the people working from home, I have been able to run my campus with 100% renewable energy for the last 2 months. And many industries, especially MSMEs, have also started to realize the hidden value of energy efficiency while looking at probably cash flow. It's also heartening to note that the policies in our country have also worked simultaneously towards improving energy access, improving the air quality, while also keeping in mind the sustainable development goals. I would like to highlight 3 areas of focus in the immediate short term towards having a long-term sustainable future. Number 1, in my view, is air pollution. I think post-COVID, many of us have witnessed clean air in our cities, and for sure, we would want to continue to breathe clean air. Energy efficiency has a key role towards this, in my view. We can improve our air by not only moving to sustainable forms of energy, but also by becoming energy efficient in our power plants, in our cement factories, in our process industries, in buildings, transporting solutions, appliances. And of course, this all has a multiplier effect, and I'm sure each of us will agree that nothing is more important than investing in our health. Investing in energy efficiency is as good as investing in our health, in my view. Second important thing that I believe, which is very critical or very important, is that I think we need to embrace innovation, including business model innovation. While we have repeatedly highlighted the technology aspect, we have not been able to embrace technology at the speed which we would like to have due to many reasons, including financing, fear of the unknown, and also probably procrastination on decisions. However, COVID has made us realize the need to adapt digitalization, IoT as an example, artificial intelligence as an example, blockchain as an example in some of the industries that we are working in agriculture. And in a way, it has fast-tracked something like 8 to 10 years. So as business leaders and torchbearers of energy efficiency, it is vital for us to move out of our comfort zone, learn from each other, share success stories, and move each and every one on the path of energy efficiency and thereby the path of sustainability. And lastly, job creation. I think this is a very important aspect in my view right now. Our Prime Minister has called on us to have an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Energy efficiency is the prime glue, in my view, which will cut across multiple sectors, multiple industries, in not only enabling us to move towards this journey, but also creating millions of jobs. It is not only long term and sustainable, but it will enable to become a knowledge power in the house of energy efficiency professionals in India, in my view. It is important here that policymakers, industry, universities, research institutions, we all need to work in tandem to ensuring that the stimulus package work in that direction and make us a global leader in energy efficiency. With these words, I would like to once again congratulate Kiran and his CII GBC team and the brilliant team led by Venkatagiri on organizing this important summit. And I'm sure that today's deliberations will show us many ideas on how each of us can make energy efficiency a part of our life and also make India as the most energy efficient nation in the world. Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite I would like to now invite Mr. R.K. Roy, Secretary, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, for his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, my dear panelists. I think I will be the least informed person as far as energy efficiency is concerned, means on the technical term. As a normal citizen of India, yes, I am informed that what energy efficiency. The fact that I recently took over as Secretary B. Prior to that, yes, my experience is in the area of MSME. I basically am from Ministry of MSME, my parent cadre. So I have the both way. What MSME are thinking for the energy efficiency, what government has done, especially for the MSME considering this post-COVID, and what we at B are doing for the energy efficiency. But prior to that, I would just like to take I think all the panelists as well as the participants. There is an article recently I just gone through that is written by released by McKinsey. It's a 27th May article that is on the post-COVID stimulus, what government should do and what industry should do. And that gives a very clear picture that yes, energy efficiency is the right way. Renewable is also there, which can lead to growth. But energy efficiency is way which we can address what we have not addressed during the recession of 2007-8. We gone on manufacturing without considering energy efficiency and where we led and what is going to do. So in case we concentrate on energy efficiency, then we are going to address the COVID issues as well as we are going to meet our global commitment, what we have made for the year 2030. At B, what will I will say what we have done and what we propose to do. The flagship scheme of the B is known to everybody, that is the PAT, Perform, Achieve and Trade. To support the industries, what we have done, we have recommended to the government that the COVID time or this period, lockdown period or the coming period, we may consider we give the leniency to the industries while taking the MNB analysis. But on the same time, which our moderator has rightly said, that this is a time that we should think for something innovative ideas. This PAT has forced some industries to go for innovative ideas. Like I will share with you the cement sustainability initiative or aluminum stewardship initiative, RE100. But there are many initiatives, many innovations, and those have been recently undertaken under our another program, that is FLCD, Facility for Low Carbon Technology Development. A lot of innovation has happened, and those innovations are available on portal. The industries can take the benefit of those. Those are established, demonstrable innovations. So those can be taken by the industries, and we can address these things. The next very important industry sector is the MSME. Yes, the ministry with their finance ministry has announced some packages which include the collateral-free guarantee. Industries are availed. More than 1 lakh crore has been already sanctioned by various banks. Though industry is yet to avail that loan because maybe the market is not there or so much demand is not there. Loan have been sanctioned. Another is the equity contribution from the government. The scheme is on the anvil and may be launched at any moment. What we have done from the B side through the MSME ministry, that we requested, it has been included. The scores have been included as a MSMEs for considering the subsidy towards the trade link capital subsidy scheme, as well as the CGT MSME and interest subvention. So the industries can avail, ESCOs can avail these facilities from the Ministry of MSME, which provides 15% capital subsidy in the CSS trade guarantee loan, as well as 2% interest subvention. Another area of the MSME that I worked with Kiran, and recently we made a presentation to Development Commissioner MSME, which he has agreed, is developing facilities on a common basis. If there are a group of enterprises and having the boilers, having individual boilers, they can go for a community boiler or community steam generation, those things. And that can be funded by Government of India. There is a scheme of CDP under which 20 CR projects up to 70% is a grant. Means 14 crore can be given by Government of India as a grant for establishing those facilities. As far as standard labeling program is concerned, our program, we have worked with Rama and other associations, and we have identified that there are around 40% of components which are right now being imported, whether it is a inverter compressor or other things. So we are there to support the industries if they wish to develop the alternatives to the imported components. Building sector, we are working with various state governments, and recently we have submitted a proposal which can stimulate the industries by retrofitting of all government buildings to make them energy efficient. The way they will be energy efficient, as well as industry will get a chance to supply various components, equipments to those industries. So these are the few initiatives which we have taken, and I'll be happy to answer any question there. Questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rai, and for your kind remarks. Now I may invite Mr. Sanjay Singh. From an ITC perspective, as a leading manufacturer and as a leader in the paper industry, we would like to hear your thoughts, Mr. Sanjay Singh. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ravi. We in paper industry have been going through a very difficult period by and large. I'm talking on behalf of the paper industry. The schools are closed, the malls are not open, the airports and all, major points of consumption, paper cups, notebooks, all have practically disappeared. So the capacity utilization of all the industries by and large is very low. Now, what was happening was pre-COVID, the demand for paper and packaging was doing well, and everybody felt that people used to measure the energy consumed per ton of paper, and when the demand is more, when you produced more than your 100% capacity by 4-5%, and you did the calculation of per ton of paper or packet board, you always felt good that I'm pretty okay. May not be very good, but by and large I'm okay. So people did not invest very heavily on energy conservation technology and things like that. Come COVID, demand has reduced and people are forced to operate at 30%, 40%, 50% capacity, frequent start and stops. So-called energy consumption has skyrocketed on per ton basis. So when the market is bad, prices are falling in the market. When everybody's got excess capacity, the customer has got the right to negotiate and get a price which he feels is right. So every day the new price is happening. So when the selling prices are low and your cost of energy shoots up compared to what it was per ton, suddenly you realize that we should have invested in energy conservation equipment or efficient equipments, whether on the generator side or on the consumption side. And people are realizing that, in fact, there could be many industries, especially the small and medium sector industries, which have been totally shut. And I've been talking to a few of them, and they realize that we should have invested in better technology, which improved the generation part of it, which produced power or steam, whatever it is, at a lower cost. And on the consumption side, the equipment should be more efficient. A bit too late now to do whatever has happened. But now onwards, at least people have learned a lesson. And by and large, I expect people to invest more and more in better technology so that going forward, you're prepared for the things. We at ITC went on investing very well in good technology, and we are reaping the benefits of that. Along with this, we had started this exercise of Industry 4.0 about before the COVID. And that is what is basically industry on the data side. There's so much information available in our control systems and all that data was available. So we used a consultant to create the algorithms which helped us to improve the efficiencies better. And during the COVID times when we are not able to run our plant at full capacity, this data has helped us to bring down our cost and improve the quality. So good efficient equipment along with that data usage has been a huge benefit to us in this difficult period. So my recommendations to all, we must start using data as a powerful tool to improve efficiency, whether it is energy or anything more. So we have been very good at it. We have, by and large, we have adopted it well. And my experience is it may be difficult for small scale industries to use data, but medium scale industries and big industries can use data to improve energy efficiencies, improve performance, and as Ravi rightly said, reduce emissions. We all want a better quality of life. We all want to live in a city, and cities are the worst polluted all over the country. So if we can improve energy efficiency, improve the emissions, improve the quality of life, we all will be a happier lot of people. That's what I thought I'll share with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay. I think for the great thoughts on investing both in technology and taking full advantage of data and how to monetize the data. I think this is a very, very important subject when it comes to energy efficiency. Thank you very much. Now let me move on to Mr. Sunil Mahajan. I think Mr. Mahajan, you are heading one of the finest cement plants in the country. We would like to hear from you. What are your thoughts on post-COVID, and how do you see energy efficiency from a cement industry perspective? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi. I think Mr. Sanjay has highlighted various issues which manufacturing industries have faced. And I have worked in FMCG industry, which is Nestle, Coca-Cola. And for last 10, 11 years, I am working with cement industry, starting with Lafarge India, and now for last 2 years with Dalmia Cement. And as most of you would know, Dalmia Cement had made a commitment at World Economic Forum that by 2040 we will be carbon negative. So that was the first aspiration. As any cement company globally, we were the first one to commit that we will be carbon negative. By 2030, we will be using only green power. And as of now, also we are lowest carbon dioxide emitting company as far as cement industry is concerned. Now, what has happened actually because of COVID? Now, there had been pressure on volumes because of COVID. So what we decided as manufacturing team, how can we reduce our cost? Because that was the biggest lever as an organization which have when cement sale is going down, then how do we maintain our EBITDA margins, or there is minimum impact on EBITDA margin? So we focused on 3 big levers. So I will bifurcate it into: one was on power, second was on heat, and third was on green fuel. So in terms of power, if I say, again, we are investing a lot on waste heat recovery to reduce our power cost, and the coolers from where our exhaust gases are there. Earlier we had only in one plant waste heat recovery. Now we are putting waste heat recovery in all our plants. So that is one decision which we have taken to reduce power cost. Second is large focus on solar power. So that is another focus area which we are taking. Third, when demand is low, obviously power consumption is going to go up. So what can we do to reduce our power consumption even in a low volume scenario? So what we did in our kilns, we reduced the TPD. We reduced the TPD tons per day and optimized our heat and power consumption. So this helped us to reduce our power consumption, heat consumption by about 2 to 3%. Then we focused on captive power plants to reduce auxiliary consumption and station heat rate of CPPs by again some capex related initiatives and by some OPEX initiatives. Another lever which we focused during this time was exchange power. So exchange power, because demand went low, so we got benefit of participating and increasing our exchange power, because exchange power which used to be available at 3 rupees, it has come down to about 2 rupees. So that was another lever which we used to reduce our power cost. On heat again, we have implemented some of the capex initiatives to move to more efficient coolers, where we will be able to reduce our heat consumption by about 40 kilocalorie. Fall sale is another focus area to reduce power and heat consumption. So these were the levers on power and heat. Green fuel is again one big area where, as Dalmia Cement, we are very aggressive on this, and we have invested a lot to maximize use of green fuel instead of coal or petcoke. So which has really helped us to reduce our dependence on fuel. So at one point of time, we were at 2 to 3% of thermal substitution rate. We have gone up to 10%, and by March, we are targeting that in all our plants put together, we should be about 20%. So 20% instead of fuel, we will be using green fuel. The various green fuels which we are using are RDF, which is refuse derived fuel from municipal waste, various waste plastics, liquids, hazardous solids, and we have again focused a lot on biomass. So these are various initiatives which has helped us to improve our heat consumption, power consumption, and reduce carbon emission. Last focus area which we focused is we are putting water. Limestone, we will be able to use lot of fly ash. So these were various initiatives which we used. Now, another challenge which we faced during this COVID time was we had some projects which were supposed to get commissioned. Now, availability of manpower in plant, especially from service engineers, whether it was FLS or KHD, etc., it was becoming difficult. So this was the first time we started taking remote support from suppliers. And this is one thing which we have done for commissioning our new plant in Odisha. And again, from some external experts which are in Germany, we are taking their help through remote support, by which we will be commissioning our coolers. So definitely COVID has created a lot of concerns, but we have taken it as an opportunity to focus on further challenging our cost lines and how can we improve on costs. That's all from my side. Thank you, Mr. Ravi.
Thank you very much, sir. That was very inspiring to hear your ambition on 2040 in becoming carbon neutral. I think you clearly laid the emphasis on investing in technology. I think the idea of exchange power, putting more focus on green fuels. I think these are really great initiatives, and I'm sure this is very inspirational for many of the other colleagues who are on the call as well. Now I move on to our next panelist. I think Mr. M.S. Unnikrishnan, Managing Director, Thermax. I think Thermax needs no introduction. It is one of the leading technology providers and one of the front-running companies who truly represent and epitomizes the Atmanirbhar Bharat as far as when it comes to energy efficiency. Over to you, sir, to hear your thoughts on energy efficiency.
Ravi, energy efficiency is too large a topic to be taken up in a 3 to 4 minutes time. So I will stick to the accelerating portion which you mentioned about the implementation. As you heard from my colleagues who are from the industry, there is a case of a difficulty and there is a case of a success also, which Sunil has just mentioned about. Utilizing the time and not to get worried about, because pandemic will get over, but your attitude towards how you're going to be managing the energy efficiency and declaring that you are going to be carbon negative is something that we need to be learning from. In my understanding, as a signatory for the COP21 Paris Agreement, we have agreed that we will reduce our energy intensity by 25 to 40% ranging, but average of 30% by 2030. Then only we'll be able to maintain the temperature rise by 2%. in COP24 in Katowice, it got further reduced to 1.5% for ensuring that our survival is there. There are 43 initiatives that are taken by the government, because since Mr. Raiden mentioned about it, I thought it's only fair on our part that we have already implemented 43 initiatives from central and state governments so far, which are policy changes towards energy efficiency, which may not be known to many people. It is there at the site of the Government of India. And this is done by a study done by TIFAC. And they formed something on the TNA, Technology Need Analysis for the country. And we have identified incidentally steel, cement, which Sunil is representing over here, fertilizer, building materials, are the main industrial sectors which are contributing to predominant part of it. And they have already taken targets, and which is really moving. But what is ailing the industry is what is more important, how to accelerate. So I will not get into COVID time right now, because it's a temporary affair in my opinion. Energy efficiency improvement across the globe has happened only through ESCOs. And ESCO as a concept in India, because we set up the first ESCO company in India way back in 1997. I had the fortune or misfortune of closing it down because it didn't take off. Predominant part of the developed world where they are currently managing energy efficiency is not in a high potency energy. It is a low potency energy recovery, and improvement of efficiency is the best thing to happen. And normally some of them have payback periods of maybe 3 to 5 years. And with the interest regime prevailing in India at maybe a 7 to 8 to 12%, it's very difficult to get capital for it. And if possible, Mr. Dalmia will tell Sunil that increase my production rather than you focusing on efficiency. But since he's able to prove that there is also reducing the cost of manufacturing, possibly he's agreeing for it. So this is something which is lacking in our country, because I have to be, I'm not talking about Thermax at all today because the time is very limited. In that, to express what do we need to do to accelerate our energy efficiency movement, because the low hanging fruits of energy efficiency is already taken care of by majority of the Indian industry. Being a deprived economy and engineers with so much of jugaad capability, most of us in the past 30 to 40 years have already brought down a lot of wasted energy. But what is remaining in the country, which will be amounting to almost 20 to 30% energy efficiency improvement possible across the field, is in low potency energy, which means to recover that energy and convert that into usable energy. Just to give you an example of this one example only I'll cite over here. Every compressor which has got 2 stages or even a single stage compressor, post the compression cycle, air is heated up. You need to cool that air before it can be sent to either an instrument for control, like the way you guys do it in your company in Danfoss, or maybe to utilize it in any other industrial application. And you're unnecessarily wasting that energy which is converted from electricity into heat energy. We have got a solution which I have implemented in a rubber factory, and 40 tons of air conditioning could be possible by just taking that energy from the air, and which is now doing the air conditioning for all the offices free. Similarly, in a potato chip making factory in the country, sorry, I'm taking a minute more because Ravi, I want people to understand where are they currently having the opportunities available. 90% of weight of potato is nothing but water. So wherever you got the fryers, India produces incidentally the largest quantum of potato chips in the world as of today. Some of the largest manufacturers are there. And you're boiling that potato which has got 90% water. The fumes coming out of that carry nothing but moisture with little of oil. And there's a pollution problem. So for the largest chip maker of the world, Lay's, Frito-Lay's, we went and collected that the fumes coming out of the fryer and converted that into an absorption chiller energy, and 300 tons of air conditioning done by them, by us for that particular plant. First time in the world. And it doesn't end over there. When you're condensing this dirty steam or a fume, it condenses into water. It's got contaminants in that. If you remove that contaminant, that chip factory does not need to be taking 1 liter of water from the earth. Full water requirement of the plant can be coming from the raw material. So this is, but this will cost maybe almost equal to 20-25% of the total energy, not total investment cost of a chip factory. Similarly, in maybe every, the factory which is producing alcohol, they can self-generate the entire energy needed for the alcohol making and possibly export power also. But the investment needed for that is almost equal to that the entire, alcohol making plant. So money is a laxity. We need to be having a lot more of regulations brought in by Though in 2017, we had a ESCO rule passed in the country, only one company succeeded. That is EESL, which is owned by the joint venture of the government. If there are, say, the new generation unicorns were to be focusing on energy efficiency, then only we'll be able to accelerate the energy efficiency movement of the country. We need to find capital, global capital. Knowledge is already available, and we can export the knowledge out of India. Thank you for taking a minute more than what you allowed me. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you very much, sir. I think that was very inspiring to hear. The opportunity that is in front of us. I think tri-generation as an area which is needs to be more explored, and I think you gave some very good examples, and they are all great examples. It just need to be scaled up, in my view, and really taken to a larger spectrum and envelope of the different industries. So I think it was very, very inspiring to hear your thoughts. Let me move on now to Mr. Hugo Salamanca, Energy Policy Analyst, Energy Efficiency, IEA. Mr. Hugo, this pandemic being global have impacted every one of us. How you have been, seeing this energy efficiency in many countries? What kind of stimulus packages are being introduced in various countries? And also, what we would like to know from you is the key policy directive countries have adopted so that energy efficiency may play a pivotal role in reviving the manufacturing sector. So over to you, Mr. Hugo.
Sorry, Hugo, you're on mute. If you could please unmute and go ahead, please.
Thank you. Still getting used to the webinar technology. Thank you for the introduction. So just a quick introduction. We at the IEA work in the energy efficiency division to provide support and evidence to different policymakers and energy efficiency professionals to value energy efficiency. So indeed, what we have been seeing in this last month, but I agree that the COVID is only a transition, we hope, and the fact that energy efficiency has been and should be in the future one of the major resources, as we often say, the very first fuel, we have to highlight that is one of the fuels that all emerging economies have and should be put into use. So the COVID crisis has been driving policymakers to deal with public health emergency while devising social and economic relief in these recovery stages. So something that has to be stressed is that energy efficiency is a source of jobs in these times, local jobs, in particular the construction sector. So the stimulus packages, the stimulus packages that we have been advocating with our partner countries, in particular emerging economies, have been directed to stressing that energy efficiency can really bring multiple benefits to lower income parts of the population, improving housing, lowering energy bills, and such. In the industry, of course, we know that it's a major source of competitiveness, improving resilience, and of course, a source of economic development. So we have been advocating the fact that there are major cost-effective measures that are quite easy to put to place. For example, we have seen that improving energy efficiency in motors, improving the minimum energy performance standards in motors, something that is not too difficult to do in terms of technology. The technology exists. This would allow to save almost 2,000 terawatt hours by 2030. Of course, to stress that electric motors in the industry will represent 30% of electricity demand. It's a major source of electricity, of energy consumption. Another point that we have been stressing is that for approximately 10 jobs will be created for every $1 million invested in energy efficiency. Another aspect that we have also been advocating is that it is a time also to improve our waste management. This is, of course, a major source of efficiency in the terms that by improving recycling and collection of waste, we would be, of course, preventing the production of basic materials, which are responsible for 30% of energy demand worldwide. And in terms of job creation in this sector of recycling and sorting, we see that 15 to 40 jobs are created per $1 million invested. So to sum up, the many stimulus packages that have been put into place across the world have, of course, been targeted to meet the more immediate needs of the population. So, of course, subsidizing energy, providing economic relief to lower income households. For the moment, we still advocate that it is a time that to really consider when resources are constrained, that it is a time to reorient them to the most efficient places of the economy. And energy efficiency, we have to stress, is a job machine. Will create jobs, will allow for the industry to be more competitive, to be more resilient. Of course, these jobs will be local, so it will be development of economic, the economic development will be local. Finally, trying to reduce our waste production will allow us not only to create jobs, but also to lower our demand. So overall, the policy packages that we recommend should have a combination of regulation, of incentives, and of course of data management, as Sanjay was mentioning, to monitor and track progress of policies. So those are the main conclusions of our work lately, and the ones that I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, thank you, Hugo. And I think you kind of laid out what are the short-term measures that IEA has been working with several countries. Now let me move on into kind of a quick rapid-fire questions because we have about another 8 to 10 minutes. So let me start with Mr. R.K. Rai. Mr. Rai, taking a cue from what Mr. Unnikrishnan mentioned, I think one of our biggest challenges is the cost of capital in India. And especially since you have worked very closely with the MSME sector, and if we can actually look at something unique for MSME sector, so whether it is interest subvention or I don't know what kind of policy initiatives are needed, how do you bring a lot of mainstream MSMEs to adopt energy efficiency?
So there are two ways I would like to go. That based on my what the government has already given as a part of the stimulus package, and what that is my personal. The other option is my personal opinion, personal idea which I presented to Ministry of MSME along with Kiran to address the issue of capital investment. Number one, what is a part of the capital stimulus are already being provided by Government of India. There are 3-4 schemes I would like just to reiterate here. There is one, most of the enterprise might be knowing. One scheme is CLCSS, Credit Linked Capital Subsidy Scheme, under which any investment up to 1 CR can be given a subsidy of 15%, 15 lakh. Earlier, there was a scheme from the same Ministry of MSME about the tech-up technology upgradation, under which for energy efficiency project, the subsidy was up to 25%. So we have requested MSME to restart that scheme again for energy efficiency projects, subsidy up to 25%. While going for the capital, another issue about the collateral. So as a part of the stimulus, 3 lakh crore has been considered for giving a collateral-free loan to the MSMEs for going for any initiative, whether it is energy efficiency or any technology upgradation. 2% interest subvention is already there for any investment. Government is also thinking to take up with the Ministry of Finance, who is not matter is under discussion whether it can be enhanced further considering the present situation. The fourth part, which is a part of the stimulus package, the fund of fund, Ministry of Finance is formulating a scheme under which they are proposing as an equity contribution from Government of India towards the MSME. This is not related to energy efficiency. This is any investment This is part of this COVID, after this COVID, if industry wants to go for that thing. So these are from the MSME side. Now another option which I presented to Development Commission on 31st of August and which has been July, which he has accepted and he has assured that Ministry of MSME will provide. There is already a scheme of ministry is called MSE CDP, Micro Small Enterprise Cluster Development Program, under which if group of enterprises are there, more than 20, and if they have a common requirement, I will give the example of community boiler. 20 or 30 industries are having their own boilers, which is difficult to manage and maintain, and there are other issues, space constraints are there. They can go for community boiler, and such projects up to 20 CR can be funded by Government of India, out of which 70% of the project cost will be grant from Government of India, 14 CR. And actually, prior to coming to B, I was handling this scheme at the ministry. So most of the state governments have supported this scheme, and more than 50% state government under the industry policy have made a provision to provide the land for such facilities. So land is being provided by the state government. 10% contribution from the state government. So 2 CR is being a grant from state government. 14 CR is a grant from Government of India. 20 enterprise has to come together and contribute 4 CR. Means 20 lakh each enterprise instead of 20 CR. So that can be a scheme which I am working with Kiran. He was, I think, he has provided me the help to identify 15 or 16 such locations which we presented to DCMSME, and he has agreed that they will support as many as a proposal if submitted by industry, because enough fund is there to support. So capital problem of industries, especially in energy efficiency or any requirement, can be met through CFC. And if there is any question about that thing, because I was handling this scheme, so I am very well available. My mobile number can be shared with the industry. I am there to support them to draft even the proposal also, which can be cleared by the ministry.
That's very heartening to know. I think the cluster-based approach is something we would also like to drive moving forward. Thank you for that, sir. Now I move on to Mr. Sanjay Singh. I have a question for you. What are the key challenges faced by various paper mills, like the integrated paper mills, waste paper mills, and SME paper mills during this pandemic?
The basic problem has been of demand, Ravi. And so when the demand is not there, it all leads to all sorts of problem, My worry is that as it is, paper industry needs huge capital. You have to keep on investing to upgrade the technology. Now, when the demand is not there, in fact, when the balance sheet is weak, people will be worried about investing in things like energy conservation and all that. But it's like the chicken and the egg story. You don't invest, you get into a bigger problem. So that is where we'll have to find a solution. And we at CI and all should, we have been having the paper tech and things like that, come up with new technologies to improve the energy conservation, and slowly the realization is coming that it's a must now. We might invest in technology, improvement in efficiencies. Where to find the capital from, that will come later on. But basic issue today, as of now, is the demand. And looking forward, we don't know when the economy will going to revive, because the growth of a paper industry is directly linked to the growth on the economy. Now, if the economy is going to shrink, the demand is also going to shrink. If we can get to some positive growth in the economy in the next 6 months, then I think the good days will happen for the pulp and paper industry.
Thank you, sir. Let me move on to Mr. Mahajan. Sir, we have a question for you. Cement industry being the front runner in energy efficiency, what role energy efficiency will be playing in the overall profitability of the cement sector under new normal? What are the plans for optimizing the energy efficiency under part load conditions if that situation arises?
Okay, so one is just to give our example, we are taking an ambition pre-COVID versus post-COVID. We have taken an aspiration in next 18 months, which I'm saying till March 22, we are targeting to achieve triple-digit VC. So triple digit we see is an aspiration. We don't have all the answers now, but we are very confident that from existing variable cost, we will be able to reduce our variable cost by 200 to 250 rupees per ton of cement. And majority of this will come from energy efficiency, which is power and fuel, by replacement of coolers, by improving specific heat consumption, by moving to renewable power, waste heat recovery, etc. These are capital intensive projects. Maybe in terms of payback, it will be 4 to 5 years payback. But then this kind of investment, once if we are able to do in terms of overall profitability, that adds 200 to 300 per ton of cement, which is decent. So this is one. Now, as far as part load conditions are concerned, yes, that situation is there. And the way we are handling it, we have reduced TPD of our plants. So instead of running for lesser days at full TPD, we are running at lower TPD, but for more number of days. So by doing that, one, our heat consumption, power consumption is optimized. I am able to run my CPPs. I am able to get waste heat recovery power again for more number of days. So these are various initiatives we have taken to reduce our heat consumption and power consumption on low demand periods.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Mr. Unnikrishnan, there is a question coming for you. What are the innovative business models energy efficiency market should adopt in the new normal?
As I mentioned about one, I was very happy to hear from the BE Secretary, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, the clustering as an idea catching on that, because when you run smaller capacity boilers, they're very inefficient and you cannot make them fully automated and make it run at for a higher efficiency. So when you go for a clustering, that itself is a great idea to start with. Second business model we started from our side is that we supply green steam instead of supplying boiler to companies, where we guarantee that we only use biomass as the fuel for it. Incidentally, for every ITC new factory related to food area, we supply. They give us land and a building, and we put our own boiler. We buy the entire biomass fuel. We manage the entire thing and charge them on a per ton basis at the end of the month. It's a business model that is catching up on. Similarly, for wherever waste is available and capital is not available, we are already now promoting that as a concept as one company, but one company is insufficient for the second business idea change in that one. Third item is related to, I'm so happy when I heard from Sunil Mahajan about part load operation. Any equipment, thermal or mechanical or electrical, when you run it at part load, the efficiency which is expected to come at 100% will never happen. So electronics engineering, IoT, machine learning and artificial intelligence combination with the equipment properly done and sensors provided, you will be able to run an equipment at 100% capacity at X percentage efficiency. Even if it drops down up to maybe 30-35% in the entire range, you can get consistently the same efficiency. This is also something which has an automation linkage related to energy efficiency, something should be done. And building efficiency also can be another area that needs to be done. So business model changes, the knowledge is going to be resting a lot more with the equipment designer. They participating in operating and running in direct or indirect way of efficiency improvement is the next business model to be evolving in India. Just at a cusp level in the developed world, we don't have to wait for them to prove it. We can start it simultaneously. That's my answer, Ravi. There are a number of other various models, but these are the immediately applicable models in my opinion.
Interesting, very interesting. Thank you. Thank you for that sharing those thoughts, Mr. Unnikrishnan. Kiran, should we take a couple of questions from the audience? We have another 2 minutes.
Sir, we'll have to conclude. Sir, we'll have to start the next one immediately.
Okay. So then I think we have more or less come to the end of this very interesting webinar. And just to summarize, I think overall the panelists have reinforced more or less that energy efficiency is a good thing to really harness and capture more value. There is a lot more value that can be captured by focusing on energy efficiency. We also heard about individual initiatives that are going on in different companies on how they would like to move to the carbon neutrality dimension. I think technology clearly has been spoken by most of the speakers. Also looking at different innovative approaches like trigeneration and low latent heat that is available, converting them into useful options. Mindset change is something that came about on the ESCO models. Cost of capital was one of the concerns, but we also heard from Mr. Rai the way that we could look at cluster-based development on different clusters with the different schemes that the government is operating. So that's also a very good turning point from an MSME perspective, because when you look around, many large companies, they will find the way to harness energy efficiency. The real challenge is making the MSMEs embrace this. So a new way of looking at it with interest subvention and the approach that the secretary mentioned would go a long way in catalyzing some of these large clusters to make this transformational agenda. So I think pandemic is, all of us agreed that it is only temporary, and our focus would now continue to be on harnessing energy efficiency to its fullest potential. And I think we also heard some speakers talk about the benefits that can come from energy efficiency to lower income society, and then waste and recycling of waste and improving competitiveness of industry. I think these are all very clear thoughts that has been shared today. And I would like to personally thank each and every speaker this morning for sharing their wisdom. And I'm sure this session has been very enlightening, very inspiring, at least for me to hear the multiple voices, but all in unison, fully supporting this journey of energy efficiency. And clearly it is the first fuel for us. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time and your thoughts, and taking so much time to be part of this session. Kiran, I would hand it back to you. Is there anything more you feel you want to add?
Nothing more, sir. Just a big thank you to all the panelists for joining us this morning. And a very small announcement that the next session would be with Mr. Suresh Prabhu and Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General of CII. That will start at 12:15 on CII Hive platform. A request to all the panelists and the participants who would be joining that session, please log out of this session and log in into CII Hive platform and join the session where Mr. Suresh Prabhu would be addressing at 12:15 p.m. now. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much
Thank you, sir.
for hosting this
Thank you,
session.
everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
We can go ahead, Mr. Ravi. Delegates are already there.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everybody. And I, on behalf of GBC, have the privilege of welcoming Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General, Confederation of Indian Industry, Shri Suresh Prabhu, Honorable Member of Parliament and India's Sherpa to G20, for this special plenary session on the occasion of the 19th Energy Efficiency Summit 2020. I think it's indeed a proud privilege and honor for me to share some of the salient features of this year's Energy Efficiency Summit. CII Energy Efficiency Summit, I think this happens every year in August, and we physically, all of us meet in Hyderabad. But given the pandemic, this time it has been virtual. But I think the spirit of the energy efficiency focus has not gone away. In fact, it has got reinforced several times during the COVID. The Energy Efficiency Summit has covered 4 different themes, and it has been, I'll just highlight them. Green Sugar Summit happened on 6th and 7th of August. The Paper Technology Conference happened on the 13th and 14th of August. The conference on captive power plant happened on 18th and 19th of August. And the Power Plant Summit happened on 20th and 21st of August. And then finally, it all culminates into the CII National Awards for Energy Excellence in Energy Management. I'm glad that CII National Awards competition now is in the 21st successful edition and has received a very overwhelming response from the industry. This year, I'm happy to share with you all that we have had 380 companies representing various sectors, and they've expressed interest in the awards, out of which 252 companies completed the prerequisites that were needed for the submittals. This also has shown that the pandemic has never stopped. More companies and more companies have actually committed to the excellence in energy management and energy efficiency programs. I'm also glad to inform everyone that we had 154 presenting companies that has achieved a collective annual recurring savings of roughly 3,109 crores in the last 3 years, and the saving energy equivalent is to about 92 megawatts. And these savings were achieved by implementing 4,538 projects with an investment of about 3,813 crores. So it's pretty much a payback within about 9 months. So I think with those very brief opening remarks, I will now request Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee to address this plenary session. Over to you, Mr. Chandrajit.
Thank you very much, Ravi. Good afternoon, Sri Suresh Prabhu, the Honorable Member of Parliament and India's Sherpa to the G20, Mr. Ravichandran Purushottam, very distinguished participants. It's indeed a great privilege for me to join, especially Sri Suresh Prabhuji for this Energy Efficiency Summit of 2020 today. And indeed honored to have Sri Suresh Prabhu at this session. And I must say that Mr. Suresh Prabhu is someone who is known for many thought-provoking ideas and missions. But one mission that he always has had, has been the need to balance the needs of human development while preserving environment. I think something which has been uppermost in his mind always, and his initiatives for environment excellence and energy efficiency under every portfolio he has held has clearly demonstrated this. And we just wanted to thank Mr. Suresh Prabhu for always giving us that leadership in this huge field and very important area, and wanted to welcome him. Sri Prabhu, you are aware that CII is celebrating its 125th year this year, and you have held our hands in this journey for a long length of time, for many, many years. And over the years, CII has partnered with the government, both at the union level and as also at the state level, and have tried to play a role in terms of India's development. And this year, more than ever before, we would from CII like to dedicate ourselves to work with the government for India and work very closely with our industry stakeholders to ensure that India bounces back from the negative effects that we have had on COVID and really looks at this. And you have also told us to how to look at these challenges and make them into an opportunity. So we will work on this, and sustainable development will continue to be an integral part of our theme. And one of the things that we have done, keeping in mind that sustainable development is an integral part of our theme, we have as an institution from CII, we have tried and created many institutions, centers of excellence, if one can say. We term them as centers of excellence, which are related to sustainability and environment. And one critical and one very important COE is the CII Green Business Center, which was launched in the year 2000. And CII GBC's vision is really to facilitate India emerging as one of the global leaders in green businesses by 2022. We are pretty much there. And since inception, if we look at the Green Business Center, it has really facilitated Indian industry in becoming greener by providing solutions and services to support the industry's green initiatives. And from energy efficiency and renewable energy to greening company operations to green buildings and green products, GBC's initiatives have enabled industry to gain from these services immensely. And I'd like to really put up take advantage of Mr. Suresh Prabhu's presence here in particular and mention, because he's a very outcome-oriented person all through his life. And just wanted to mention some of the outcomes and the impacts of the GBC, where we have recorded an annual recurring savings from many of the initiatives that I just mentioned, which includes 9 billion kWh of electricity, 15.5 million tons of greenhouse gases per year, which is avoided, and monetary savings of over 3 billion Indian rupees. So this is something which is a very, very important outcomes that we have seen. And I recollect that energy efficiency was the first service which was provided by the CII way back in the 1990s. And today, GBC, if you see, it is so great to note that they have completed over 1,800, nearly 2,000 energy audits in India, as well as in countries like Australia, Japan, South Korea, and a number of other countries in Asia and Africa. So this has been a phenomenal area of work. And besides this, there has been many other related activities. I'm not going into the details of it. There are also hundreds of training programs, etc. But let me mention a little bit about something which I always have been proudly associating the GBC with, and that is IGBC, the Indian Green Building Council, which was initiated again in 2001 and has been in the forefront of the green building movement of India. And IGBC has today developed 25 plus, more than 25 rating systems for various green built environments, ranging from homes to offices to schools to cities to transit systems. And through these, India today has over 7.5 billion square feet of registered green building footprint, which is one of the highest in the world. And IGBC's strong association with key stakeholders like the real estate developers or architects and even green building consultants, that enables to take the green building movement to every nook and corner of India. And today IGBC has, as one sees, really spreading the message of sustainability so strongly through all its 27 local chapters, 250 plus student chapters, which is very, 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 very interesting to note. And I wanted to put this up to Sri Prabhu, who is present here with us. And IGBC also really the aim to reach the milestone of 10 billion square feet by 2022, when India will celebrate its 75th year. We are really confident that this milestone would be achieved, and this milestone will be a very big outcome for us to come. And the CII IGBC building, which is there in Hyderabad, the GBC building, the Green Building, the Green Business Center, the main headquarters. It is also a platinum rated net zero building, which shows that this particular institution has been able to walk the talk. Many other things like the Green Co or the Green Co is very important because Mr. Prabhu's idea it was, and Green Pro, say for instance, and many other areas of new work that had emerged. And today, what we are proud is that the fact that India is already the world leader in energy efficiency in a few sectors. And this Energy Efficiency Summit, which is on its 19th year, and has gone from strength to strength over the years. And it has been because of such luminaries like Mr. Suresh Prabhu, who has always graced our important events and such forums and meetings. And this year, in the way we are organizing it in the virtual way, more than 2,500 registrations is really a large reach. And so it's in one way a blessing that we are not in Hyderabad in a physical way, but we have come much more in the digital version. I'd really like to sincerely thank Mr. Ravichandran Ravi for his leadership on the Energy Efficiency Council and for the excellent forum that we are having. And I'd really also like to thank all the participants and all of the CII National Awards for Energy Management. And I really want to wish them good luck and a very big thank you and sincere gratitude to our award judges. The awards program would not have been possible without the phenomenal involvement of our judges. But before I end, I wish to turn once again towards the chief guest of this session, Sri Suresh Prabhu. I really want to turn towards him. Sri Suresh Prabhu, who is India's G20 Sherpa, has always been a strong supporter and growth driver for green energy. his wide-ranging knowledge across all domains of green and energy efficiency is really remarkable. And each time we interact with him on this, it is a real learning for CII. We have contributed, Sri Suresh Prabhu, he has contributed immensely to India's sustainable growth mission over the last many years. And CII, as I mentioned, has had a long privilege of an association with Suresh Prabhu over decades, which has really led CII into new areas of work. We have valued his path-breaking and visionary thought leadership and taken inspiration from many of his ideas, which he has given to us. And he is known for his passion, hard work, and innovative ideas across many areas, be it industry or be it the economy, be it the energy efficiency, be it skill development, be it even social issues, which have driven India's development and sustainability agenda strongly with many remarkable outcomes. And his support and encouragement has really helped CII to engage on all these issues, bringing definitive results for all society and industry. And Mr. Prabhu's versatility, if I can say, is evident in the fact that even as we speak, we have initiatives lined up with him which span geographies which is more than half the world, where we have finished one half we have covered with him, and we are working on the other half in public policy, of course, in the area of, as he is the G20 Sherpa, in the area of B20, and many more. And one can hardly think of another person in a leadership position in public life who can provide leadership to such a vast array of subjects and areas. As a minister in charge of infrastructure, key infrastructure and industry ministries, at that time, he championed Indian industry at every global forum and introduced phenomenal reforms. The attention he gave to competitiveness of Indian industry, ease of doing business, trade facilitation, or use of technology for e-governance really catalyzed India's industry performance at all levels. And I was just also wanted to inform that GreenCo, which Sri Suresh Prabhu launched in 2011, and I don't know whether he will recollect that, is now an accepted practice for companies wanting to go green. And today, under your leadership, this initiative has gained such a huge traction with consumers as well as businesses. And as a result of your encouragement, I would also like to say that CII signed an MOU, if you recollect, with the railways, and is now engaged in making railway stations go green, which has been a phenomenal success. So it's always an inspiration to have you, and I wanted to take those few minutes to actually relate to this group which has gathered your phenomenal contribution in this movement of energy efficiency. Mr. Prabhu, thank you very much for always gracing us and giving us your guidance. Thank you very much, Ravi. Thank you. Ravi, you are on mute.
Thank you, CB, for those for your thoughts, and I think I fully agree with you. And we have worked with Mr. Prabhu in several occasions, and he's been really a green ambassador for CII as well, in my view. And I think I had the privilege of discussing with him during the difficult times of the phase down of the refrigerants, and I think he had very visionary ideas. And I think a lot of his initiatives actually led to even some of the big railway stations, like, the Chennai Central is now green rated, Mr. Prabhu, and at that time you initiated that. So I think these are some great thoughts from you, which we are carrying on and really been able to execute. May I now request Mr. Sri Suresh Prabhu, Honorable Member of Parliament and India Sherpa to G20, to address the special address for a special address, please. Over to you, sir.
So, good afternoon, friends. Thank you, Mr. Ravi, for chairing this important session. Thank you, my dear friend Chandrajit Banerjee, for providing complete outlook and a background for this important session. I must compliment CII for doing so many good things for the society and the country as a whole, and for the global good. But also, in particular, this particular initiative related to energy efficiency will go a long way in ensuring not just India saves energy, but becomes competitive, helps environment generally, and also become a leader in showing how do we actually address the twin challenge of climate change as well as development of economy at the same time. So I must congratulate CII for doing this a very laudable work in the last several years. Generally, before I come to some very interesting anecdotes in my own life related to energy efficiency, I would put it into two important buckets. One, obviously save energy, but other part of it is also equally important is demand side management. The supply comes in to cater to demand. But if you can have a demand side management, then the supply need not be the only way you can address the challenges related to, because you supply, the attendant problem that arise because of supply can be addressed properly. And that's true for everything, whether it is water, whether it is energy, or virtually anything. And particularly in energy, both are equally important, demand side management and energy efficiency, for a simple reason. Is electricity, when you generate, before it is consumed by the end consumer, the whole process, when you actually generate electricity, you have to use step-up transformers for making it into high voltage so that it can be transmitted to long distances without losing too much of it. So you have a step-up transformer. Then you have transmission, which again has some losses. Then you have step-down transformer, because you cannot use that high voltage energy into the consumers at their end because they don't have the equipment to handle it. So the whole process of electricity loses quite a lot when you actually generate it. It again besides the point that you have auxiliary consumption of electricity generation. So just imagine when you say I have 1,000 megawatt of electricity plant, the amount of electricity that is finally consumed, even if you generate 1,000 megawatts of full capacity, it is not the same. So you lose quite a bit of it because of technical reasons, and in India we call it commercial reason. That is theft and dacoity. It's not transmission and distribution, but I used to call it, as when I was a power minister, theft and dacoity losses, T&D losses. So all of that put together, when you generate electricity, you already put in a lot of resources, and if it is not consumed, before it is consumed, so much is lost already. Just imagine if you have energy efficiency system in place, demand side system in place, then the reason for generating so much and losing it on the way could be avoided. And therefore, energy efficiency and demand side management, both, I'm deliberately clubbing it together, are one of the most important initiatives that we must put in place for all resources, but particularly for energy and water, to put in precisely. India's culture is actually in line with energy conservation. In fact, I remember when I was a power minister 20 years ago, exactly 20 years ago, in 2000, I had an office, and it all depends upon the minister's office, how it looks like, depends upon your predecessor. If your predecessor had a very good aesthetic sense, he would put the office beautifully. Because I never changed my office despite the fact that I occupied 10 different offices in my 10 different cabinet positions. I never changed any decor. I left it to my predecessor. If he was really good, I could get a good office. If he was not good, I will not get a good office. But I never change it to save, again, efficiency issue, to save money for the government, not to decorate it too much. But my office in Shram Shakti Bhavan, which is a headquarters for Power Ministry, in my office, there's so many lights, so many bulbs. Probably if you light all that, you'll feel that you are standing or sitting in the broadest of sunlight is somewhere in Africa, which is so bright. What I did was, I used to put only few, probably not even 1% of 2% of the total lights available. So people used to ask me, why are you sitting in darkness? I said, does it create any problem in communication? They said, no. I said, that's the reason. That you are asking me this question is an answer that we can manage with less. Why you want to use so many? And that's what is our culture in India. is we don't want to spend too much. We actually want to save everything that is available, not only for ourselves, but more for the future generation. And that's a nature. But just imagine, despite that being a nature, we don't follow it in certain other areas, particularly in the energy area. You'll find street lights, even during the day, are still on. If you can actually work on some of these initiatives, it can help a great deal. And that's what I mentioned, that when you generate so much and then lose it before it is consumed, and then it is wasted in terms of not having proper efficiency norms and not using demand-side management norms, how much is the loss the country as a whole is losing? You can imagine. Just imagine, more than half of electricity in India is produced by coal. And coal is one of the principal cause of greenhouse gas emission. So if you can save energy efficiency, the upstream benefit is you save so much of coal consumption, coal generation. You don't have to burn so much of coal. And that itself can help in energy, not energy efficiency alone, but overall reducing greenhouse gas emission. Now coming to this, as I said, that's why it's a very important initiative. I congratulate CII once again, and Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee has seen the journey as a Director General of CII and in so many of the initiatives which has his own trademark. I really congratulate him in person as well, and his team. I know many of them, and I work with many of them, and I know how much commitment they have to actually make it happen. As I said, anecdotal issues. I was a power minister in year 2000. I had a great fortune of piloting energy efficiency bill in the parliament. So energy efficiency law became a law when I was a power minister. As a part of the execution, implementation of law, we had to create Bureau of Energy Efficiency. I am the one who administratively signed the file to create first ever Bureau of Energy Efficiency for India. I appointed Shashi Shekhar, then in my colleague in the Power Ministry, who retired subsequently as a Water Resource Secretary, very fine person, and we created Bureau of Energy Efficiency in the Ministry of Power. It was of infancy. People were not very willing to accept the regulation of that kind. So we came out with a different kind of regulation. We said we'll work with the industry, which is one of the principal users of energy in any case. We work with all of the stakeholders, and as far as possible, we'll try to bring in self-regulation. We'll come out with standards, norms, and we'll tell them to follow it on their own so that it will not be intrusive regulation as it always happens in many other regulations, but will be collaborative regulation. People will accept it because in their own benefit. Why will they accept it? As Chandrajit Banerjee was mentioning, buildings. If you have energy efficiency, you save electricity bills. In case of industry, cement, steel, which are the major users of guzzlers of energy, I would call them. If you lose less energy because their cost of energy to the total cost of production is very high. A percentage of input cost comes from energy which is high in terms of their total cost of production. So if you can reduce the energy consumption, you are becoming more efficient in the marketplace, and particularly in the case of globalized economies. So we came out with those standards, we made them implement, and I was happy that that initial thrust on kind of regulation we must put in place through energy efficiency has become a new norm for regulators generally. And I can be very happy to say that I played the role of initially launching it. I have another very interesting anecdote related to this. We organized the first ever global energy efficiency conference in 2002, in August 2002. Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee presided over it as a chief guest. Just before that, for some political reason, I was asked to resign as a power minister by somebody else. Mr. Vajpayee was not happy that I was resigning. So he didn't accept my resignation till the day, for almost 2 weeks, till he actually concluded this conference, and then very reluctantly accepted it. Of course, in the next few days, he gave me another bigger position of interlinking of rivers with a complete cabinet minister position. But That was the last program I attended as the power minister, and that was related to energy efficiency. And that too decided by none other than the Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So I have very fond memories of energy efficiency, which I try to put in place, which Mr. Banerjee mentioned, so I'm reminded of it. As a railway minister, my whole thrust was how to make railway efficient, cost-wise, service-wise, delivery-wise, implementation of project-wise, and there is a empirical evidence to prove that really it all happened in ground in reality. But one of the mission, I'm not getting into other issues, was energy efficiency. I came out with a program for 42,000 crores, or rather 41,000 crores of energy saving plan. 41,000 crore mission in 10 years. You will be surprised in the first year itself. So normally 41,000 first year should be 4,100 crores. We saved more than that. And there was a multiple strategy point in that. And this was a public document. I launched it publicly. And CI, as you mentioned, we signed MOU with them and so many others. This 41,000 crores could happen through many multifarious means, including solarization of electricity per train. In fact, the first ever solar electricity train was also run when I was a railway minister. More importantly, energy efficiency. We started energy audit. I also started water audit for railways. Nobody could imagine. First ever water policy for railways also was launched when I was the railway minister. I created first ever sustainable division for the railways in the history of railway. And that is still functioning luckily. The point is, railways could save 41,000 crores in monetary terms. But what is the impact on generally emissions? What is the impact on sustainability? The positive impact. So just imagine one ministry, one department of the government could save so much. And I can see that clearly that can happen in many areas. In fact, there is other aspect to it at a macro level. India, and there's a dream for $5 trillion under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision, which I put little details into it. As a commerce industry minister, came out with $5 trillion plan, incidentally. CI was again a partner. In fact, wherever I have gone, I've chosen right partners. Man is known by the company he keeps. So CI has been a good friend, good partner, good fellow traveler. And that plan has multifarious dimension. India, over a period of time, luckily, has improved energy intensity to GDP. There are the times when GDP improves by 1%, India's energy consumption also has to be 1 or more. Over a period of time, it has gone down considerably. That shows the improvement in energy efficiency standards for India as a macro level. But there's other dimension, which normally we overlook. Carbon intensity. Energy efficiency, energy intensity for the GDP also must result into carbon intensity improvement. And to do that, there are other measures which are required. And in fact, one part of this $5 trillion plan, for me, which I was working on, could not be completed, was how to improve India's competitiveness. See, our industry under Atmanirbhar Bharat has to compete globally. Our industry must not just sell products at good price, at good value only domestically. They must capture the global market. And they can capture global market only when they are competitive. Must be competitive within India, must be competitive globally. So if you are going to be competitive globally, then your standards must be global. And I'm very happy that in many areas now we are employing global standard. That was the idea when we set up Bureau of Energy Efficiency. I said we must move to global standard, but not tomorrow. But the vision must be global standard so that industry will not also have any problem, but their direction is very clear. They know exactly where they have to move. So there will not be a problem for them immediately, but they will be able to benefit eventually. So I think energy intensity, carbon intensity, energy efficiency, demand side management, all these things go hand in hand. And they are not just from energy perspective. They are from economy perspective. They are not just from economy perspective for a country as a whole, but for industry in particular. And therefore, such kind of going hand in hand, integrating all this together is very important. And that's what I was trying to explain to the railways. I said, why don't you do that? In fact, when I became aviation minister, I was also trying to set up standards for efficiency in energy. Particularly, in fact, I'm happy to say that first biofuel flight was launched when I was a minister for aviation. And I can keep saying many anecdotal things. Everywhere I've gone, I try to introduce all these issues related to that. Now, coming to this particular event, in which we are rewarding those who have done well in energy efficiency. I hope also in demand side management, because I have not gone through the details of it. But I think this is the only way we can raise the bar in terms of accomplishment on such laudable ideas. When you reward somebody, people get benefit out of it. In fact, I remember when I was Prime Minister, I had invited then President of India to give energy efficiency awards. And there I had said in one of my speeches that these are like Bharat Ratna Award, because those who can do so much well for energy efficiency, they are actually helping India to achieve much better in terms of quality of life for the people, because the quality of life depends upon the kind of air you breathe, and the air depends on kind of energy you use, not for mobility, for electricity generation, for industrial use, and for many others. So I think this is a very laudable initiative. Though I got the news about this program only day ago, but as I always do, I respond to all good invitations, and also invitations particularly from CI, who are my very good friends and colleagues in my journey to make India a better place. India at 75 is a mission of CI, and I think though India will become 75, but will not be old. Will be young at 75. And as youngsters, you must have even more ambition to do much better things in life. So CI at 75, India at CI is more than 7,500, I think. And India at 75 would make sure that our journey will together make India a better place. And in fact, CI, though driven by the membership of industry, is always a nation-building organization. And I think their issues that they take up demonstrate their commitment to nation building. And therefore, I really offer them my best wishes. Ravi, congratulations to you for doing this. I know we'll be able to come to Hyderabad, though I'm not an MP from Telangana, which now Hyderabad is the capital of, but I'm an MP from Andhra Pradesh. And you repeatedly mentioned my MP. So I'm an MP from Andhra Pradesh. So I'm because I'm a Andhra Pradesh MP, I represent Telugus. So in a way, I also represent Andhra Pradesh and Hyderabad. So I would look forward to coming there to have a very delicious Andhra meal. I'm sure Ravi will be able to offer it at his home. I know his hospitality. And I really look forward to doing that soon. And I congratulate all my friends in CI, all those award winners, all those who are responsible for making energy efficiency as a mission for India. And I'm sure we'll succeed in this only if we have collaborative efforts. Government, industry, users of energy, standards, suppliers of equipment who can make that energy efficiency possible. All those standards will go a long way in achieving our overall goal of making India a much better place than what it is today. So congratulations, all the best. Looking forward to working with all of you. Please remember one thing. Anytime you need me, I am available to you for any laudable good objective that together we are to accomplish. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. That was very inspirational and very motivating for us to listen to you. And I think, as you rightly mentioned, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency was really the starting point for this great movement that India has seen the last 2 decades. And then I think the kind of success that we have achieved in the last 2 decades was only possible with the visionary leadership of yours at that point in time. And I think over the last 2 decades, even though we may not, have achieved the world class as a country, but I think we are moving towards becoming world class. And we already have some of the best cement plants in the world. We have some of the best paper plants in the world. I think your your initial impetus to this journey is very commendable, and thanks for sharing your wisdom and thoughts. So we have two questions for you before we conclude. Sir, in this energy efficiency summit, we have a lot of young professionals who are participating. And in fact, yesterday we had 16 young energy efficiency specialists who were participating in a competition. What would be your advice for the huge pool of young professionals who are active in energy efficiency space?
Sorry?
What would be your advice to the young professionals who are active in the energy efficiency space?
No, I think I always refrain from giving advice to anybody on any subject, because I think the human beings have the great ability to think better than what I think they can. But at the same time, for my young professionals, I would request you, not advise you, that take it as a mission. In fact, you cannot imagine. So Japan is one of the best energy efficient country in the world. And when did they start? They started the journey during the first oil shock in mid-70s. First oil shock. Well, other countries were looking at diplomacy, others politics, talking to the Arab world properly so that we can get supplies. Japanese worked because they are the almost all energy in Japan, all sources of energy are imported into Japan. They became one of the top energy efficient country in the world. And that explains why Japan became the second largest economy of the world. Now, of course, become third. But second largest economy, most energy efficient economy. That's why Japanese can export their products all over the world. So just in fact, I'll tell you, there was as you know, Fukushima, the crisis that happened in Japan, when there was a accident in nuclear plant. Japanese said we'll reduce the energy consumption because they are importing it, because they stopped all the nuclear plants. So they were in big problem. All Japanese, they put their air conditioner at not less than 23, 24 degrees centigrade. Just imagine in hot summer, they said, no, we'll follow this rule. They started, the Japanese then Prime Minister said, be cool. So they said, like Ravi is doing, without wearing a tie, which Japanese otherwise would never come for a meeting without wearing a tie. But they said, no, be cool like him. So I think he's Japanese in a way, or he's trying to also demonstrate his commitment to energy efficiency by doing this. But they did that. So my request to my friends young friends will be that you do this. In fact, I also remember, now you're asking me, my last speech as a power minister was in Vigyan Bhavan when Prime Minister Vajpayee was there. I had said that we brought energy efficiency law to improve energy efficiency. Can you bring in, I remember that, that's why I'm just saying it now. Can you bring a law for mindset change? Can you bring any law? That I want to change mindset. Because if you change mindset, energy efficiency will happen naturally. So mindset change now can happen through young people. If you change your mindset, energy efficiency will become a reality. So I wish all of you work on this important mission. I'm very happy that youngsters are joining this movement. It's a business case also. If you come out with solution, people will buy in because they think that you are saving money for them. So make business of helping others, not business because regulation brings in. That's not a right way to do business. As a chartered accountant, I keep telling it to my CA colleague. Because statutorily audit is required, we should not make money. Try to be business partners with your clients and try to give them business solutions which can help you. So I think all young professionals make business solution. How to make energy efficiency as a mission, as a idea in which people will buy in because you make a better idea.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think we have time for one more question. With your permission, can I ask, sir?
Please, please.
How can India lead the world in demonstrating that climate and growth goals can be achieved simultaneously without being against each other?
In fact, this is the only way, as I was mentioning, improve energy efficiency. Because energy is one of the principal cause of greenhouse gas emission. Energy and environment are the two sides of the same coin. So energy efficiency, energy intensity to GDP, keep bringing it down. And secondly, make carbon intensity coming down. So if you do that, you can actually make it better. In fact, saving energy makes a good business sense. So economic development can happen more. And therefore, economy and environment can go hand in hand only when you have sustainable solution. And energy is a very good platform to demonstrate it. It has happened in many countries, many cases. Japan, as I gave the example of that, though Japan has one of the Annex 1 country under the Kyoto Protocol because it has high emissions. Over a period of time, they're reducing it constantly. So actually, we should follow a sustainable path of growth. It is not necessarily we should try to do something, the mistake that has been committed by the industrialized world. We should unlearn from them and learn the right lessons from them, like Japan is one of the good example of that, and try to build a strong foundation for economic development, which actually encompasses, embraces sustainability as an integral part of economic growth.
So I think, thank you very much, sir. I think that's very, very, very important and very critical for India as we start to, grow the economy in the new normal. Balancing sustainability and balancing growth becomes very important. So I think that with that note, I would like to take this opportunity to formally thank you for having accepted our invitation and be part of this special session on the occasion of the Energy Efficiency Summit. And on behalf of CII, GBC, and the entire team, a very big thank you to you and for taking time out and coming and sharing your inspirational thoughts this afternoon. And also thank you very much, CB, for finding some slot for us. I know you must be having quite a number of programs, but I'm sure there's no better program to attend than energy efficiency in my view. So very, very big thank you to you as well, CB, and the entire team of GBC for putting together this fantastic event. So thank you very much, and I'll hand it back to Venkatagiri. Is there any final comments you want to make, Mr. Giri?
No, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.